And I'm Bill Ritter. There's no question that crime is up. There's no question that these horrific high-profile tragedies need to stop. And there's no question that this fear of crime is real and growing.
But there are many questions about how to regain control of our streets, our subways, and our city. And the answer's not easy. Over the next half hour, we are going to examine what could be behind this recent spike in violence, from homelessness and mental health to illegal guns and bail reform.
But perhaps more importantly, we're also looking for solutions, like how neighborhood groups can help fight crime and which reforms need to be reformed again. We'll also provide practical information like how to stay safe and vigilant on the subway, including where to sit and where to stand.
Our coverage begins now with Eyewitness News reporter N.J. Burkett.
Whether it's a residential street in the Bronx or a subway station in Midtown Manhattan, New Yorkers feel more vulnerable tonight than they have in years.
It's just a very sad situation, what's going on in New York City. I hope New York City gets better.
Violent crime has been rising over the past 2 years, with crazed, unstable people in the subways and fearless teenagers with guns. Shootings that once took place in back alleys now happen on crowded streets in the middle of the afternoon. Gang members blasting at one another, with bystanders caught in the crossfire. Among the latest victims, an infant struck in the face with a stray bullet. Police officers are being shot, and unsuspecting subway riders are being attacked at random. Others are being robbed. In the past 2 months, it's become an onslaught.
Certainly the levels of safety that we saw during the last 10 years are now being reversed, and it's a serious moment. No one should undermine how serious this is.
There were 485 murders in New York City in 2021, the highest total in 10 years. There were more than 1,500 shootings, the highest in 15 years, and double the number just 2 years ago. And underground, major felonies are surging. Bronx DA Darcel Clark.
It's not just the law. You know, it's people thinking that they can get away with whatever they want. That's where we are now, which is, you know, really scary. Just a total disrespect for humanity.
The age at which somebody first picks up a gun is getting younger and younger and younger. We now have 12 and 13-year-olds picking up guns and carrying. We really better focus on that.
Aborn believes Mayor Adams understands the crisis, but needs to act quickly.
I think he has a very short window to put a cap on the rise of crime. I think it will come down, but it's going to come down gradually.
Aborn is convinced that targeted anti-gun patrols can be done legally, and that federal agents have a role to play.
We need to set up true interstate strike forces to go after the illegal guns coming up what we call the Iron Pipeline from Pennsylvania, the Carolinas, Texas, Alabama, and Georgia, and Virginia. The feds could help us do that tomorrow morning.
Darcel Clark is convinced that coordinated investigations will help turn the tide.
We're putting together investigations that are phenomenal. And once we get them now, it's going to be able to stick because every agency is working together.
And no, experts say this is not the 1970s all over again. You heard Mr. Aborn say a moment ago that the mayor has a relatively short window. He says a few months to try to stop the trend. But driving down crime in New York City, he says, will likely take the better part of a year.
We must take back the streets. It doesn't matter whether or not the person that is accosting your son or daughter or my son or daughter, my wife, your husband, my mother, your parents. It doesn't matter whether or not they were deprived as a youth. It doesn't matter or not whether or not they had no background that enabled them to become socialized into the fabric of society. It doesn't matter whether or not they're the victims of society. The end result is they're about to knock my mother on the head with a lead pipe, shoot my sister, beat up my wife, take on my sons. So I don't want to ask what made them do this. They must be taken off the street. That's number one. There's a consensus on that. The Democratic chairman of the Judiciary Committee, the Democratic president of the United States of America, the Democratic Attorney General, the Republican leader of this effort, Senator Hatch, the Republican senator from Texas. We all agree on that. Now, we can find some fringe folks in the study groups on the right wing and left wing, libertarians and left-wingers in my party who say, no, that's not what we should do. But politically, that consensus has been arrived at. I acknowledge there was not that consensus in the 60s. There is today. There's a second thing that we all have agreed upon, and that is unless we do something about that cadre of young people, tens of thousands of them, born out of wedlock, without parents, without supervision, without any structure, without any conscience developing, because they literally, I yield myself 3 more minutes, because they literally have not been socialized. They literally have not had an opportunity. We should focus on them now, not out of a liberal instinct for love, brother, and humanity, although I think that's a good instinct, but for simple, pragmatic reasons. If we don't, they will, or a portion of them will, become the predators 15 years from now. And Madam President, we have predators on our streets that society has, in fact, in part because of its neglect, created. Again, it does not mean because we created them that we somehow forgive them or do not take them out of society to protect my family and yours from them. They are beyond the pale, many of those people. Beyond the pale. And it's a sad commentary on society. We have no choice but to take them out of society.